Hello everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Lizzy, for those of you who don't know. So I have done one in the past, but the thing is I feel like the more books come out, the more your tastes change, the more you like different books. So I like to do like an updated one, maybe like once every 6 months, just because I feel like, not my taste in books change, but I feel like my favorite books change, if that makes sense. If you're curious what like genres I usually read, I usually tend to go for romance, mystery, and fantasy, and all of those are umbrellas of like YA and different types of things in that genre. So I thought, what better way to start this video out with some romance. We're gonna start out with some YA romance book recommendations. Okay, so the first romance YA books that I'm going to recommend are Binding and Keeping 13, or just the Tommen Boys books in general. I have read these two and I just finished Saving Six. Basically in these books we follow Johnny and Shannon has a very troubled home life, and she is a very timid, shy girl who doesn't really have a ton of friends. She is just the quintessential like shy girl, and I feel like some people don't love those types of characters in these books because she's definitely very vulnerable. She has really terrible like home life. Like, there are things in this book that are very deep. There are topics that are really hard to read, so I would definitely recommend reading like trigger warnings if you feel like those topics are something you need to be wary of. I really enjoyed these books. Like, I feel like they're so different to anything I have ever read. So if you want to dive into books that have a little bit of a deeper meaning, deeper topics, but still like have really cute moments as well, I have Redeeming 7 left, and then there's also Taming 7, and I just love these books so much. They're not like my favorite, like they don't fall under like my favorite bracket, but I still loved and enjoyed them, and I still was like super emotionally invested in the story. And I know some people literally would die for these books, so maybe you're one of those people. Okay, so the next YA romance books that I'm going to be recommending to you are Love and Gelato and Love and Luck. So these both are location based. Love and Gelato is based in Italy, and Love and Luck is obviously Ireland, and there's also a third one, Love and Olives, and I'm pretty sure that follows Greece. They each follow a different main character, and they're both just kind of like a self-discovery book about this main character and going back to like a country that means a lot to them, or something along those lines. Like, there's always like a deep meaning with these books. Like this one, I think her mom loved Italy and she recently passed, so she decided to go and visit like all of these places that her mom went to, and this one's about Ireland, and she's going to like a wedding in Ireland, and there's like this little treasure hunt that she decides to go on where she learns more about like herself. I'm pretty sure I gave each of them like a 3.5 just because they weren't like astronomically amazing, but I still really enjoyed my time reading them, so I would still recommend them to you guys. So yeah. The last YA romance books that are my absolute favorite chef's kiss is Anything by Lynn Painter. And I'm sure this does not come to a surprise to you all. I only have this one in paperback just because I'm kind of annoying and I don't get them in their hardcover. I wait for them all to come out in paperback. I read Better Than the Movies and Betting on You. This was a 5 stars. Betting on You was a 4.5 for me. Literally just incredible books. Like, I don't know what she puts in her YA romances, but like they will always hit for me. They're always so incredible. The way that she like conducts her stories, and the way that each of them are so different to each other, but they all have like a deep topic remaining within them. Like, it is just so good. If Lynn Painter wrote it and it is a YA romance, I'll eat it up every time. Okay, so the next books that I'm going to be recommending are contemporary romances, which is one of my favorite genres as well. This is not going to come to a shock to any of you, but the first author slash books I'm recommending are none other than Abby Jimenez. She is a mastermind. She is so good at what she does. I loved every single one of these. My favorite, though, my favorite is Yours Truly. So good. Yours Truly, and then it goes Probably Part of Your World, and then Just for the Summer. For those of you who don't know, this is her newest release, Just for the Summer, and I did recently read this one, and I gave it a 4 stars. It was such a cute, amazing read with like topics I've never read before in books, and it was devastating and beautiful at the same time. She is just an incredible author, and I highly recommend you picking up every single one of these. They're technically interconnected standalones, so it goes Part of Your World, and then it goes Yours Truly, and then Just for the Summer, and then the other interconnected standalone is The Friend Zone, and then the Happily Ever After playlist, and then Life's Too Short. So that's kind of how her books go, but honestly you can read any of them and still love and connect with the characters, so yes, I highly recommend these ones. Next book that I'm going to recommend is The Bodyguard by Catherine Zenner. This is one of my top contemporary romances. It is so good. I don't know what she put in this book. It was just so good. It was just incredible. I don't know what Catherine Zenner put in this book. I gobbled it up. I literally gobbled the whole thing up in like 24 hours. This book is very interesting. The premise is that our girl Hannah is actually the bodyguard of Jack, who is like a celebrity, so she's the bodyguard of him, and I just love that premise because it is just so different to like what would typically be the case. And I loved the way that she went around their dynamic because it felt very natural, it felt very fluid in the way that they like came to be, and it was just so darling. It was so beautiful and so cute and sweet, and it was just everything that I want a contemporary romance book to be. It was incredible, and I highly recommend this one. The next book slash author is not going to come too surprised to any of you, and I'm sorry if this is just Emily Henry. I mean, if you don't know who Emily Henry is, like I don't know what to tell you. She is just the mastermind of the contemporary romance world. This is her most recent release, Happy Place, and it's also my favorite out of all of her books that she's read yet, because Funny Story is coming out in like 2 weeks, and I'm so excited. I highly recommend you picking them up. I'm sure I'm not the only one who's told you to read an Emily Henry book, but if this is like your like third person telling you to read them and you still haven't, take it as a sign. Take me telling you as a sign to pick it up, because it is so good. So the next book slash series that I'm going to recommend is a polarizing one. It's a polarizing one. Magnolia Parks. I read this book and then I was like, not for me. And then I picked up Daisy Hates and I was like, okay, maybe I enjoy it. And then I picked up the next one and I was like, yeah, I'm in love. This is one of the most toxic book series ever. Little to nothing is redeemable in these books. Like, it's really hard to recommend books that you know like don't really hold anything redeemable in them, but at the same time you still fall in love with the characters even when they're doing the wrong things. Like, it hurts your heart like they're real people that they do these things, if that makes sense. High society, London, Gossip Girl vibes. They're all rich, they're all pretty prestigious, and they all have like problems that we don't have problems about, like about paparazzi, relationships, cheating, toxic relationships, like so many things in this series. I fell into the hole and I can't find my way out of it. It's so good but so bad at the same time, and I'm so sorry if that's kind of deterring you to reading this, but if you know what I mean, like, it's so bad, it's so good though. Cowboy romances, or small town if you will, have slowly become one of my favorites because they just add an element in normal romance books that usually are not a thing. They have like such a cozy element, they have an element of found family always. With no surprise, the first small town slash cowboy romances I'm going to recommend are Elsie Silver's Chestnut Spring series. These books are so widely talked about for such a good reason. There's definitely something in these books that have magic in them, so I would recommend this series. And she also has Gold Rush Ranch, which is a series that she also has. I don't have it with me physically, but I have read them and I have enjoyed those books. They were definitely cute, but I still enjoyed these more. So I would still highly recommend this series. And she also just came out with another series called Wild Love. I read that one, loved it. So yes, anything by Elsie Silver, I'm going to be honest with you, like, you will have a fun time and you will enjoy yourself thoroughly because they're just so comforting and really just magical. Okay, so the next genre that I'm going to be talking about is mystery. I'm going to be starting out with YA mystery. Of course, the first books are not going to come to a surprise to anyone. The Natural series by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. I devoured this series. It's basically young adult criminal minds. It was so enthralling and just literally I ate up every single one of them. The last one is actually a 5-star book for me. It was so good. The way that she did this mystery was so different to anything I'd ever read. It was just so different in just everything about it. Like, I don't want to like get into what the mystery was, but if you read this series and you know like the way that she did this was so different and so cool and interesting. So yes, this is the first YA mystery that I'm going to be recommending. The second YA mystery books that I'm going to be recommending are Holly Jackson, anything by Holly Jackson honestly, but these two are her most recent releases, so this is what I'm going to be talking about. 5 Survive and The Reappearance of Rachel Price. I gave 5 Survive, I think, a 3.75 stars. I really did enjoy this one, but to me it wasn't like an amazing book to me. There was like some things that I didn't love about this book, but I know that some people love this book so much, so I still recommend it. And then my most recent read from her, The Reappearance of Rachel Price, devoured this book, finished it in a day. So good. 4.5 stars. I just love everything about this book because it was so Holly Jackson. The small town, the interviews, just everything about it. If you loved A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, I think you will literally love this one over this one. This one felt a little bit different versus A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, which was like very found family, very like interviews, small town, you're trying to figure out this small town mystery, and this was literally just like that, and it was so good. So yes, highly recommend both of these, but this is the one that I think so good. Next we are going to be talking about not adult mystery, but just normal mystery thriller that might have a little bit more like mature elements put into them. The first author that I'm going to recommend is honestly anything by Frida McFadden. She is just a mastermind, in my opinion. In my opinion, every single one of these books have had an element where I was shocked. She is just so good at plot twist, and her books are so easy to read for some reason. Like, they don't have a ton of like elements, like they're very simple plots, and I think the reason why it's so easy to read her books is because the plot is so simple and succinct. And I've just like thoroughly enjoyed all of these. Although some of them are not like my super favorite, I still recommend them because they're just so easy to read, especially if you have a Kindle. These are all on Kindle Unlimited, so I highly recommend them. The next mystery author that I'm going to recommend is not going to come to a surprise as well, and that is Alice Feeney. Anything by Alice Feeney, to be honest with you, but this one is my favorite from hers, Rock, Paper, Scissors. It was just so incredible the way that she did this. The way that she writes books with such an atmospheric element, like it was just so creepy and eerie and beautiful and scary at the same time. It was just so incredible and so well done. Anything by Alice Feeney like is always going to be like a must read for me. So yes, Ali Feeney, highly recommend. Okay, so the next author and books that I'm going to be recommending to you is Lisa Jewell. I have with me here Then She Was Gone and None of This Is True. I loved both of these. Lisa Jewell has a way of making books so twisty and dark and just like, especially this one. This one was literally crazy. This one was literally crazy. I recommend it, but it was very dark. This one's a little bit more tame, but it still like has a dark element to it, and it was just so interesting the way that she did this one because it's kind of in like a podcast format, and I feel like that is so interesting and so different. So yes, highly recommend Lisa Jewell, and I want to get into way more of her books. So if you guys have more books by Lisa Jewell that you recommend, let me know what they are. Okay, so that concludes our mystery section of this video. Next, we are going to be talking about my favorite, fantasy. So with this one, I am going to be first talking about adult fantasy. The first books that I'm going to recommend, I'm just going to quickly recommend them, and that's anything by Sarah J Maas, literally anything. All of her books are 5-star series for me, except for Crescent City. I still enjoyed that one, but it wasn't like my complete favorite. But anything by Sarah J Maas, I'm not going to talk any further because she already has so much airtime everywhere else. So I'm just going to quickly say Sarah J Maas, love it, read them all, please. The next book that I'm going to be talking about, I actually don't know if this is adult, but Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies, I don't know if this is adult or YA. It was just the most amazing, cozy fantasy, nothing like I've ever read. It was so beautiful, atmospheric. I loved everything about the way it was written, the way that Heather Fawcett would write things, the way that she would describe things were so beautiful, and I just loved the way that it was written. I also listened to this one, so it just was so beautiful in my ears. Like, I loved everything about it. It was so magical, fantastical, like, it was just beautiful, and I highly recommend it, and I'm so excited for the next one in this series. So the next adult fantasy books that I'm going to be talking about is Serpent and the Wings of Night. I feel like this is now getting its time. It had like 2 months on Book Talk where this was like getting so much hype, and now I think Serpent and the Wings of Night is now traditionally published, so it's getting some more airtime now for good reason. I loved these books. You're like following basically a human and a vampire in like Hunger Games, and it was just so enthralling and interesting, and I loved it. Like, it was just so entertaining and fun, and the plot twist in the first book was so good. Also, the next one in this series, I'm so excited for. So yes, highly recommend this series if you are in the mood for like a little bit of like a darker fantasy in terms that it's like vampires and stuff. It was so interesting. So yes, highly recommend. Last but not least, my favorite genre of all, YA fantasy. Let's talk about my favorite YA books. First one that I'm going to be talking about is the Prison Healer trilogy. The series is like classic, fun, adventure, YA fantasy, and it was just so much fun. I gobbled all of them up, like they were just incredible. So yes, highly recommend this one. Now I'm going to be talking about a few duologies that have my heart. The first duology being These Hollow Vows and These Twisted Bonds. This was just such a fun YA duology. It was just the perfect twist of all like types of fantasies rolled into one. It had fae, it had so many elements that were just so entertaining and fun, and it's a little love triangle. Like, it was just classic YA fantasy, and I had so much fun with it. Highly recommend both of these. The next duology is, I love this one, One Dark Window and These Twisted Crowns. These books are just so good. This is such a different fantasy duology that I've ever read. It's very gothic, it's very dark, mysterious, like fog. It's just so, it was so eerie, and I think it's like perfect for fall. So if you're like intrigued by the series, I would wait like a couple more months to like really be in the mood, because it's definitely like a winter duology because it's just so atmospheric and beautiful. It was so different to any fantasy I've ever read, and I feel like the series is like getting a little bit more hype. Like, it definitely has hype, but like it's definitely worth the hype, and I think it's getting like its second wave now. It's just so incredible and fun. So yes, highly recommend. The next trilogy that I'm going to talk about is going to come to no surprise to anyone. Once Upon a Broken Heart. This whole trilogy has my complete heart, and now that I have 3 copies of it, I have these hardcovers, and then I have 2 exclusive edition paperbacks, and I have the Waterstones edition of them. If that's not enough to tell you how much I love this series, then I don't know what will. It is just enchanted, magical, beautiful, amazing. I will not talk about it any further because I've talked about it so many times. Take this as a sign. Read the series. It's so good that I'm literally forcing my book club to read it this summer. So, yeah. The next duology or trilogy, I actually don't know what this follows, but Light Lark by Alex Astor. I have only read the first one, but I have Nightbane on my TBR cart. I have heard really, really, really great things about Nightbane. This book was, I think I gave it a 3.5. It was good, but it wasn't like my favorite. But I've heard really, really great things about Nightbane, so I'm very intrigued to get into that book. It was just like really fun. It's very different to like a normal YA fantasy, to be honest. I need to like brush up on like the last couple pages of this book because I kind of forgot some of the things that happened. I remember having a really, really fun time with it, and it's YA, so it's like obviously very easy and very digestible. The last YA fantasy book that I'm going to be talking about is one of the most polarizing books on the internet, I think. Powerless by Lauren Roberts. Yeah, I'm not going to be talking about this book for very long because I have talked about it so many times. Read it right now, read it, 5 stars, read it.
No.
Read it. I'll give you a minute right now to read it. Give you a minute.
No.
Did you read it? How do you like it? This is just an incredible book, and I won't talk about it any further. I won't. Okay guys, so that is the end of today's video. I really hope you guys got some good recommendations. Please like, subscribe, do all of those things that you guys know how to do, and I will hopefully see you in my next YouTube video. Bye guys.